Hi, my name is Ed Bice. I work at Medan, and I'm here at Media Party 2017 to talk about the work that we're doing on credibility indicators and the credibility indicators working group. And the challenge is, how do we develop some indicators for credibility without breaking the open web?
I flew through a hurricane to get here. I landed in Atlanta in a 70-mile-an-hour headwind, and everyone on the plane was screaming. And so I am standing here with you today as a person who yesterday, it's right there, didn't think he was going to live to see this day. So I'm sharing that inspiration with you first. And then I had the humbling experience of sleeping on cardboard in the airport, and now I'm here, and I'm not sure what day it is, I'm not sure what time it is. I believe that I'm in Argentina, but mostly I'm just happy to be here and be alive. So, the problems with the internet don't seem as stark or as troubling to me as they did 2 days ago. Nonetheless, I'm going to try to put some emotion into this talk. I have some notes I'm going to refer to, so bear with me as I try to make my way through a talk that is going to touch on some of the work we're doing at Medan, but also specifically is going to talk about an open working group that we've started to look at how we address credibility standards on the web. So here are some of the framing ideas for this talk. It's thoughts on context, hyperlinks, annotation, and the great bot war of 2020. I would assert that the natural response to the situation that we are currently in at this moment in history, as technologists and as journalists, we have to acknowledge that our hopes for the open web, our belief in journalism as a vector that allows us to explain the world and have those explanations mean something more than fake, false, misinformed explanations of the world. These really fundamental underlying pieces of our DNA are we should be questioning them. And I think that what we need to acknowledge is that the challenges that we're facing are infrastructure. These are large-scale, deep challenges, and right now the web feels pretty broken, and society along with it. Working on open source technologies at Medan, the predictable talk to give to you would be to assert that the tools that we're working on check, and to a certain extent Bridge, which I won't talk about at all today, but which is a tool for collaborative translation. So being in an international setting, I should give a bit of a nod to Bridge and encourage you to look at that. The primary tool we've been working on for the last 5 years at Medan is Check. Check is work that came out of the fact that we'd been in Cairo working with journalists and doing media projects since 2007. So our friends were at the center of the revolution. We were there. We were working on contextualizing Arabic and English media and setting them side by side. So when the revolution happened, when we saw citizen media servicing, we recognized that there was a need to add a context layer, a verification layer on top of that. So we went out to some foundations and some donor agencies and said, hey, citizen media is going to be a pretty big thing. It's very contested. How do we know what's real? We ought to work around this verification problem. And so we were about 5 years ahead of the historical curve there with fake news. It's interesting to note that there is a direct line between this one historical moment, which is the quote-unquote Arab Spring or Arab revolutions and fake news, and Medan connects those two dots. The most important project we've done on Check to date has been Election Land. You heard a little bit about that earlier. Election Land was the largest single-day collaborative journalism project ever undertaken. We started planning it 90 days before the election. Scott Klein from ProPublica, Olivia Ma from Google News Lab, Claire from First Draft, and I got in a room and said, well, do you think we could do this? And I didn't admit at the time, but we actually didn't have the new code base running at that point. I'm admitting it now. So that was a really important project for us, showed the power of 1,000 journalists working into Check to do verification workflow, 300 media partners breaking stories on that. So it was a profound and confirming project for the power of large crowds to work together. Following that, we, as mentioned earlier, also we did Crosscheck, which was a French election monitoring project. But unlike Election Land, which was specifically single-day project, Crosscheck was looking at rumors leading up to the election. So we've been evolving this model as we're going. And then we subsequently did GE17 as well. Crosscheck had, a key piece of Crosscheck was, again, the partnerships, bringing many media partners to the task. And I think this partnership piece kind of, in a way, it points to the fact or the work that we're doing around the credibility indicators, because it shows that verification, fact-checking, it's not a scoop. It's not something that a single media company should own or a single media partner should own. These are the base facts that we build the stories on. So there's actually this, unlike many pieces of journalism where collaboration is just, it's anti your business model. You want to get the scoop, you want to break. Fact-checking, verification, agreeing on what's real. This is an inroad to actually doing collaborative work between newsrooms. So I think that's really important. And as I mentioned, we were a founding partner at First Draft. I'm repping today with a First Draft t-shirt. I think that there's a lot of amazing and profound work coming out of First Draft, including resources like the Field Guide to Fake News. So you guys should check that out, look it up, translate it into Spanish, please. Or maybe it already has been, and I don't know. I'm gonna not pitch Medan products anymore, I promise. I'm gonna give you a GitHub address. It's a modern, complete test-covered code base. It's a Ruby backend with Relay and GraphQL and React front end. And there's a lot of great people from 4 continents, including 4 engineers from Brazil working on this product. So if you are doing fact-checking, if you're wanting to do verification work, come to my workshop at 1 o'clock or reach out to me. Check is an open source tool. It's not used in any newsrooms in Argentina now, so we'd love to see that happening. And we're also just really user-driven in terms of our roadmap. So if you've got use cases, important use cases, we want to know about them. So that's the end of my infomercial. Thank you for bearing with me. Now back to the casual apocalypse. I think this is a pretty amazing metaphor for what we're going through right now. This is in Western Washington, some golfers enjoying a round of golf while the apocalypse rages behind them. I want to assert that the response to the situation we're facing now, it's not gonna be a single tool or reinventing election monitoring or even in mobilizing a global resistance against all things inauthentic. And I think we need to aim deeper in the stack. This guy's name is Doug Engelbart. Doug was an early advisor to me, Dan. I was really lucky to meet Doug when I first started the project. And I sat down in Doug's house and listened to him explain to me that he was an engineer working early in his career, and he had this experience where he walked down a hallway. There was a light at the end of it, and he had an epiphany that all of his work that he'd been doing, all of the computer science he'd been doing, was meaningless. He needed to devote all of his energy to perfecting systems for collaboration. So he formed a research lab at SRI, and about 30 years ago gave this demo, which is on YouTube, which is pretty fascinating, called The Mother of All Demos. And it said that 90% of the people in the audience didn't believe that the demo was real, and the other 10% went on to invent the modern internet. So Doug had this vision for the internet that was fundamentally about raising people up. When he and Ted Nelson invented the hyperlink and the mouse, they thought that the network would provide this amazing resource that would lead to great things for humanity, and that the hypertext, the hyperlink, was the path to connecting knowledge. What we've seen in the last 10 years, we had an early beautiful period of the internet, the blog-friendly internet, when it all felt functional. And as Hossein Derek-Shan at Hodor has pointed out really eloquently, he's a friend who was imprisoned for 6 years, came out of prison, and wrote this amazing blog post about where are the hyperlinks, how come the web's dead, and you should look that up and read it. It's beautiful. The combined impact of the clickbait, spam ad tech, devaluing hyperlinks, and the platforms trying to create walled gardens to keep us inside. All of this has led to a sort of loss of the value of the hyperlink, and really a loss of the dream that Doug had for what the internet could be. So with that as a framing, I think that we could define misinformation as information on the web for which supporting context cannot be found, or for which refuting context can be found. And I think the challenge is the simple fact that the miracle of Wikipedia, with as a notable exception, third-party contributions to the context of a web page are only occasionally achieved through comments or direct outreach to an editor. Standardizing the means of creating and signaling the context that supports or refutes claims and sources on the web might enable us to address these issues at a structural level. And I think we can consider this an evolution of the idea of a citation. Not just how rich it is, which is what we've been trying to build with Check, but also who's able to author a citation against a web page or against a claim inside a web page or against a source. So before I go ahead and talk a bit about the group, I think that there are some of you in the audience who are, based on that last remark I made, who are thinking, oh God, Ed, this sounds really bad. It sounds like you're creating the Truth Project. What's worse than bot-mediated, spam-filled internet than a censored, truth-sorted internet? And I just want to go on the record saying I totally agree. It's a terrible idea. I hate the idea of a single rating that cascades through the machinery of the web and cleans out every non-compliant opinion. In fact, I think the reason that we're taking a leadership role in this project is the fact that we've worked in settings where context is totally disputed. So I think that we at Median are more aware than most of the completely contextual nature of information, and so we're trying to build tools that allow authoring in. We're not trying to build tools that censor out content. It's about dispute mechanisms, not takedown mechanisms. So this is the Credibility Indicators Working Group. I'm going to speed through a few slides because people are holding up slides indicating that I should speed up. This is the second working meeting that we held in New York at the Columbia Journalism School. And there's some really great people whose names I won't go into. Why are we doing this right now? In addition to my flight path, which I didn't chart here, I think there's a perfect storm. The perfect storm is earlier this year, the W3C approved a web annotation standard. We also have the W3C working on credentials group, verifiable credentials group. This means that we might be able to signal with authority who we are, what sort of university degree we hold, so that a 20-year climate scientist should be able to annotate a climate article. Third, we've got Google and Facebook reaching out to us, reaching out to First Draft, reaching out to others, saying, we want your help. We're willing to look at the UX around these issues, and we're willing to insert fact checks. We're willing to insert disputes. So that's pretty amazing. The fourth piece is that there's a mobilized movement of people who care enough about the web, who believe that we can do something about the utterly broken nature of the internet as it stands in 2017. And that I think is the most important piece of this perfect storm. I'm going to have someone throw a card up toward me real soon that it tells me I've got no time left, so I'm going to go quickly through the recipe that we've got for this. So first, we're going to convene stakeholders from a bunch of different backgrounds, platforms, standard bodies, New York Times, AP. If you are a data geek or affiliated with a media company or a platform and you want to be a part of this, talk to me. We're running an open process. So we've just put up a website, median.com/credibility-indicators, I think. And that'll give you some links. We're holding working meetings around the world. We're going to do indicators development, use cases development, schema development in a completely open manner. And lastly, we're going to be testing. And we're going to be testing not just the schemas that are developed and the article markup, but also the UI, UX around how this gets presented to the journalists doing the markup and to the readers experiencing it. I'm going to leave that off, but I am going to address the great bot war of 2020. So the whole purpose of this work is to avoid the bot war that extinguishes humanity. If we can come up with a good way to standardize signals for credibility, that means that bots can't author the way humans author because they won't have those credentials. So with that finish, I'm going to now, this is the official second at which I've finished my speech. My joy for life, which was reinforced with the landing in Atlanta, was put on hold with the terror of doing this talk. So now I'm done with the talk. I'm ready to experience the rest of this life. And let's fix the internet together.